All right. Hey again. Um, this is my second time doing this one because my internet disconnected me in the middle of it. So let's start this over. What I'm going to do is I have a study guide for the Unit 7 Common Assessment for the Rise and Fall of Feudalism. I'm pretty much just going to read through that from my notes, what I have, and it might feel like I'm jumping around from topic to topic, but there's a reason for that. So you can even go ahead and turn to your common assessment right now and follow along with me as I'm doing this. And it could help you, or you can just listen and wait, and then I will read over the common assessment questions. Okay. So, one thing you need to know, well, there are a lot of things you need to know, but one of the things you need to know is that feudalism provided political, social, and economic stability to Europe in a time of chaos. So, um, the fall of the Roman Empire left Europe without a centralized government, and this is why they needed to create like a system of order. So that's where feudalism came in. Um, and they had no real economic system, and this provided some economic stability for the English. The fall of the Roman Empire. Um, okay, skip that. Go. I'm gonna skip that. Okay, so Charlemagne. We talked about Charlemagne a little bit in the other video, and the main thing that or the big thing that he did was he united all of the Christian kingdoms of Europe into a single Holy Roman Empire. So this is where the church starts to become more powerful, and um, Charlemagne became the first Holy Roman Emperor. Uh, the next note I have to give you is that a king gave his most important lords fiefs, which were grants of land. So, um, if you were most important, then you got land. A knight would offer up their loyalty and their military service if a king would give them land. So they would say, I will fight for you, I will protect you, and I will be loyal to the country if you give me land. That's a knight. Um, through the power of church, the kings in medieval Europe believed that they were granted the divine right to rule, which meant that the power came directly from God, um, and he was the one who told the kings that it is your this is your right to rule. Okay, hold on one second. What's up?
Nothing.
Okay. All right. Um, Clergy is a group of people who have jobs within the church and do certain things in the church. So the order of the clergy went from the bottom, were priests, so they were at the bottom, and then bishops, archbishops, cardinals, and then the pope. So that is the order of the clergy. Again, it's priests, bishops, archbishops, cardinal, pope. Um, Kings were prohibited from appointing priests, and they were not allowed to sell church positions any longer. So before, if you had the most money, you could buy what position you wanted in the church. Um, they also the church excommunicated Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV. And these were just all some examples of how the church started gaining more power, and feudalism started to decline. The okay, so one way. Okay, so sorry. To formally deprive a person of membership in a church is to excommunicate them. I said that they excommunicated the Emperor Henry IV, and if so, if you're excommunicated, you cannot be a member of that church any longer. A journey to a holy site is called a pilgrimage. In addition to new farming methods, another reason for the growth of towns was the revival of long distance trade. So, this is where the Silk Road played a big part of expansion in Europe of the towns. And as time went on, the towns and towns grew in medieval Europe, the feudal lords started losing power to merchants because merchants were the ones making everything and providing new needs for the townspeople. So they became more powerful, more necessary than the feudal lords. Okay. And the education of a typical boy during the Middle Ages was basically based on what their father did. So if their father was a cobbler, the son is going to be taught how to be a cobbler too, and that's likely what he'll end up doing as an adult. For girls, they typically learned how to cook, housekeep, and care for children. That was the girls' role. Okay. So during the Middle Ages, many towns purchased royal charters to gain independence, and this charter would grant them the right to make their own laws, raise taxes, and govern themselves. So everything was brought together, and then by the use of royal charters, they kind of started breaking off into their own little governments. Now I do want to say hi. He just came across and laid down. Say hi. Sleepy. All right, moving on. If you're keeping track of the common assessment, I'm right around question 15. So, punishments. So, what happened if you broke a rule or broke a law during this time? You would be hanged. You could be burned at the stake. You could be put in with the livestock. So, they would force you to be in with the pigs and whatever other livestock they had there. Those were punishments. So, again, the decline of feudalism. We've talked about all of the different things that happened that kind of caused this decline. But the bubonic plague and the 100 Years' War and political, like the shifts in political changes. So from the monarchy to the church, all cause part of the decline, or did cause the decline of the feudal system. Magna Carta, we talked about this in the last video, the Magna Carta contributed to ideas about individual rights and liberties. So kings didn't have as much power, and ordinary people like you and I did have a say in some things. So that was the purpose of the Magna Carta. Okay, so the principle of habeas corpus means that an accused person cannot be jailed and indefinitely, or cannot be jailed indefinitely without being charged with a crime. So you can't just arrest somebody and that you think did something and keep them in jail without charging them for a crime and being able to prove it. That's habeas corpus. Okay. And how did the plague change the lives of the survivors? So again, talked about this in the last video. A little bit, common people gained more power because there was a shortage of workers, and many peasants and serfs left the manors and moved to cities. And then the peasants rebelled when nobles tried to return things to how they had been. So the plague kind of brought down the feudal system by shifting power to anybody who was left. There weren't enough of everybody, like all the lords and knights. So the peasants kind of rose up against them. Okay, so again, the 100 Years' War. So the effectiveness of knights in the 100 Years' War was reduced by the English longbow because it could pierce their armor. And then I'm going to just go over again. Hopefully you guys are taking this in, but political changes, the bubonic plague, and the 100 Years' War. Those three. Political changes, bubonic plague, and 100 Years' War. Those contributed to the decline of the feudal system and led to feudalism and led to no more feudalism in Europe. So the bubonic plague started in Asia. Europeans traded with Asians, and this brought the plague to Europe. Unsanitary conditions and populated cities made the disease spread easier. It could come on fleas that would then transfer to humans, and it killed about half of the population of peasants and some lords and monarchs as well. Okay, so that's my little review. Now I will read through each question for the common assessment. So turn to Unit 7, Common Assessment, The Rise and Fall of Feudalism. All right. So question 1. Which of the following is a cause for feudalism being created in Europe? A. Europeans wanted to remove all aspects of the Roman Empire. B. Feudalism offered peasants an opportunity to rise above the social class they were born into. C. Feudalism provided political, social, and economic stability to Europe in a time of chaos. D. Europeans believed in democratic principles like the Greeks and Romans. Which of the following is a cause for feudalism being created in Europe? Number 2. The fall of the Roman Empire left much of Europe without a centralized government and no real economic system. How did Charlemagne change the course of European history? A. He united nearly all Christian kingdoms of Europe into a single Holy Roman Empire. B, he conquered what was left of Rome and Greece to form a new empire. C, he led the Gauls in their attack on the Roman province of Brittany. D, he became the Pope, and by doing so, he was the first person to be the Pope and a king at the same time. Number 3. A king gave his most important lords fiefs, which were A, grants of land, B, large celebrations, C, war horses, D, market licenses. King gave his most important lords fiefs, which were what? Grants of land, large celebrations, war horses, or market licenses. Number 4. Who would have most likely said the following? If you give me land, I will give you my loyalty and military service. Would a serf, A, B, a pope, C, a king, or D, a knight most likely say that? Number 5. Through the power of the church, kings of medieval Europe were granted the divine right to rule. What is the divine right? Or what is divine right? A, it gives the kings of Europe the right to serve as a pope and monarch. B, it provides the monarch reasoning for the idea that the right to rule comes directly from God and not from the people. C, it allows the king to share power with the pope and bishops of the church. D, it gives the people power to remove kings they find unreasonable. So, what is divine right? Okay, question 6. What group of clergy members belongs on the blank row? A, monks, B, parishes, B again, it was A, B, C, but yeah. So monks, parishes, mendicants, or archbishops. So which member of the clergy belongs there in the middle? Monks, parishes, mendicants, or archbishops. Okay, this is number 7. The actions below are examples of what process? So prohibiting kings from appointing priests, outlawing the selling of church positions, and excommunicating the Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV. So all of those are examples of what process? A, developing a hierarchy of church officials. B, strengthening the power of the church. C, improving efficiency in the government. D, protecting the wealth of monarchs. Number 8, which of the following is not a way the church gained and kept power during the Middle Ages? A, they could read and write Latin, something many people could not do. B, the church was the largest landholder in Europe by 1050. C, churchgoers were expected to give 1/10 of their money to the church as a tithe. D, clergy members would marry into royal families, bringing monarchs and the church closer together. So you're choosing the one that is not a way the church gained and kept power during the Middle Ages. Okay, number 9. To formally deprive a person of membership in a church is to A, King Henry IV, B, clergy, C, persecute, or D, excommunicate. Number 10, a journey to a holy site is known as a relic, convent, pilgrimage, or monastery. A journey to a holy site. Is that a relic, B, convent, C, pilgrimage, D, monastery? Okay. Target 7.3, I will describe the growth of medieval towns and daily life in Europe. Question 11. In addition to new farming methods, another reason for the growth of towns was the A, fall of the Roman Empire, B, revival of long distance trade, C, technology to build stone walls, D, discovery of better medicines. 12. As time went along and towns grew in medieval Europe, feudal lords lost power to blank. Which word belongs in the blank box below? So feudal lords lost power to A, serfs, B, knights, C, bishops, and D, merchants or D, merchants. So as towns grew bigger, who became more powerful? 13. Which of the following would the education of a typical girl during the Middle Ages most likely include? A, logic, philosophy, and politics. B, cooking, housekeeping, and caring for children. C, astronomy, arithmetic, and anthropology. D, mathematics, science, and physical education for girls. 14. During the Middle Ages, many towns purchased royal charters to gain independence. A charter granted them the right to A, elect nobles, church officials, and bishops. B, buy land, sell land, and rule over feudal lords. C, make laws, raise taxes, and govern themselves. Or D, declare war on the king. So, what did a royal charter do in order to give people independence? 15. What was a punishment for someone who was found guilty? They could, was it A, hanged, B, burned at the stake, C, put in stocks, or D, all of the above? Hanged, burned at the stake, put in stocks, or all of the above? Number 16. These are questions about the end of feudalism in Europe. So, political changes in England, the bubonic plague, and the 100 Years' War. A, strengthened the role of feudal lords in society. B, made the importance of individuals decline dramatically. C, contributed to the decline of the feudal system. D, led to rapid increases in the population of Europe. (17) In England, the Magna Carta contributed to ideas about A, individual rights and liberties, B, loyalty to the king, C, the power of the peasants, D, the role of religion in society. 18. The principle of habeas corpus means that an accused person, A, cannot be jailed indefinitely without being charged with a crime. B, cannot be tried in secret. He must be tried in an open court. C, must be convicted 3 times before being put to death. D, must be represented by a lawyer paid for by the court if he cannot afford one. So habeas corpus, what does that mean? Okay, and then 19. How did the plague change the lives of the survivors? A, common people gained more power because there were a shortage of workers. B, many peasants and serfs left the manors and moved to cities. C, peasants rebelled when nobles tried to return things to how they had once been. D, all of the above. Okay, question 20, our last multiple choice question. How did the Hundred Years' War affect the importance of knights on the battlefield? A. Horse-mounted knights proved to be an unbeatable force when facing mere foot soldiers. B. Knights took on even greater leadership roles as they led their armies to victory after victory. C. The effectiveness of knights was reduced by the English longbow, which could pierce their armor. D. Kings were disappointed in the knights' cowardice and banned them from future military operations. Now, how was the importance of knights affected by the Hundred Years' War? Okay, so finally, for your ERQ, you can just write it right below there. There's plenty of room to write it on here. So, A, identify 3 events that led to the decline of feudalism in Europe. So, I talked a lot about those. There's also a question that has all 3, well, 3 of the big events and then that led to the decline of feudalism. So, identify those 3 events. Make sure you use complete sentences. Capitalize your sentence, punctuation at the end. And then part B, choose and describe one from above and explain the impact it had on the population of Europe, including the monarchs, the feudal lords, and the peasants. So be sure to give a specific example or some specific examples and details in your answer. So you just choose one of those 3 events and just describe how it led to the decline of feudalism and the impact, the impact that it had on population. Okay. So that will conclude this packet. We're done with this one, and we will be moving on to the Renaissance. And I am going to take a small break right now from recording, and then I'll probably try to come back to this one and get this one on there today too, because I know we're running close on time and there's a lot of work to do. So I hope you guys are still having a good day, and it's really nice outside. So if you have the opportunity, get outside. All right. See you guys later.